Jake Morrison walked slowly down the busy street in Los Angeles. The sounds of cars and people filled his ears, but everything felt strange to him now. He had been away from Earth for 10 years, fighting battles in space that most people here would never know about. His body was different now, too. The military had changed him, made him stronger and faster than normal humans. His eyes could see better in the dark, and his muscles never got tired like they used to. He wore simple clothes, just jeans and a black shirt, trying to look normal. But he knew he would never be normal again. The genetic changes the military, doctors had made to him were permanent. They said it was necessary to fight the aliens that wanted to hurt humanity. Jake had done his job well. He had killed many alien enemies and saved human colonies across the galaxy. But now, walking on Earth again, he wondered if it had all been worth it. The street was crowded with people going about their daily lives. They had no idea that alien ships were out there in space waiting and watching. They did not know that enhanced soldiers like Jake were the only thing keeping Earth safe. Maybe it was better that way. Let them live their normal lives while people like him did the hard work of protecting them. Jake stopped at a red light and looked around. The city had changed while he was gone. There were more homeless people now living in tents under bridges and in doorways. Their faces looked tired and hopeless. Jake felt sorry for them, but he also felt distant from their problems. He had seen entire planets destroyed by alien weapons. What were a few homeless people compared to that? As he crossed the street, something caught his eye. Under a highway bridge, there was a camp of homeless people. Most of them were dirty and worn, down by life on the streets. But one person stood out to him. A woman with brown hair was sitting on a piece of cardboard, holding a small sign asking for help. Something about her looked familiar. Jake moved closer, his enhanced vision focusing on her face. His heart began to beat faster. It could not be, or not here, not like this. But as he got closer, he was sure. It was Lisa Carter, the girl he had loved in high school, the girl he had wanted to marry before he joined the military and left Earth behind. Lisa looked much older now. Her face was thin and pale. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Her hands shook slightly as she held her sign. Jake could hardly believe what he was seeing. Lisa had been the smartest girl in their school. She was going to be a teacher. She had dreams and plans for her life. How had she ended up here? Jake stood there for a long moment, not knowing what to do. Part of him wanted to walk away. This was not his problem anymore. He was a soldier now, not the teenage boy who had kissed Lisa behind the school gym. But another part of him, the part that still remembered being human, would not let him leave. He walked over to her slowly. Lisa was looking down at the ground, not paying attention to the people walking by. Most people ignored her anyway. Jake knelt down in front of her, his heart pounding. "Lisa?" he said softly. She looked up at him with tired eyes. For a moment, she did not recognize him. Jake knew he looked different now. The military treatments had changed his face slightly, made his jaw stronger and his eyes a different color. But then something in her expression changed. "Jake?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Jake Morrison? Is that really you?" "Yeah, it's me," he said, trying to keep his voice calm even though his emotions were spinning inside him. Lisa's face went red with shame. She tried to get up and run away, but her legs were weak and she stumbled. Jake caught her gently with his enhanced reflexes. "No, please don't look at me like this," she said, tears starting to form in her eyes. "I'm not the person you used to know. I'm nothing now. Just leave me alone." "I'm not going anywhere," Jake said firmly. "What happened to you, Lisa? How did you end up here?" She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to decide whether to trust him. Finally, she sat back down on her cardboard, and Jake sat beside her on the dirty ground. "It started about 5 years ago," she began, her voice shaking. "I was working as a teacher, just like I always wanted. I had my own apartment, a car, a normal life. Then I started getting sick. My hands would shake, and I would get dizzy all the time. Sometimes I could not remember things or think clearly." Jake listened carefully, his enhanced hearing picking up every word even with the traffic noise around them. The doctors could not figure out what was wrong with me, Lisa continued. They did test after test, but nothing showed up. My condition got worse. I started having seizures at work. The school had to let me go because I was not safe around the children. Without my job, I could not pay for my apartment or my medical bills. She wiped tears from her eyes with the back of her dirty hand. My family tried to help at first, but the medical costs were too high. The government programs were not enough. I lost everything: my home, my car, my savings. The sickness got worse, and no doctor could help me. So here I am, living on the streets like a piece of garbage. Jake felt anger building inside him. Not at Lisa, but at the world that had let this happen to her. She had been the kindest, smartest person he had ever
known.
She deserved better than this. There has to be something we can do, he said. Some treatment or medicine that can help you. Lisa shook her head sadly. I have tried everything, Jake. Whatever is wrong with me, it is not something normal doctors can fix. I have accepted that this is my life now. But Jake had not accepted it. His mind was already working, thinking about the advanced medical technology he had seen during his military service. If human doctors could not help Lisa, maybe alien technology could. He had connections now, resources that normal people did not have access to. Lisa, he said, looking directly into her eyes, I am not the same person I was when I left Earth. I have seen things and learned things that most people never will. I promise you I am going to find a way to help you. She looked at him with a mixture of hope and disbelief. Why would you do that for me? We have not seen each other in 10 years. You probably have a wife and family now. You do not owe me anything. Jake took her shaking hand in his steady one. Because some things never change, Lisa, and because no one deserves to suffer like this alone. Jake spent the next 3 days thinking about Lisa. He had found her a room in a cheap motel and given her money for food and clean clothes, but he knew that was not enough. Her illness was getting worse, and normal doctors could not help her. He needed to find out what was really wrong with her. Using his military access codes, Jake broke into several government medical databases. What he found made his blood run cold. Lisa's symptoms matched perfectly with something called neural degradation syndrome. It was not a natural disease. It was caused by exposure to alien biotechnology. The files he read told a story that made him sick to his stomach. 30 years ago, when humans first made contact with alien species, some government officials had made secret deals. They wanted to make humans stronger and smarter so they could compete with the advanced alien races. Companies like Nexus Biotech had started doing experiments on people without telling them. They would put alien DNA and technology into human bodies. Sometimes it worked, creating enhanced humans like Jake, but sometimes it failed badly. The failed experiments caused terrible sickness that got worse over time. The companies had covered up these failures and left the sick people to die alone. Jake realized that Lisa was one of the failed experiments. While he had become a super soldier, she had been left to suffer and die. The same technology that made him strong had destroyed her life. The guilt hit him like a punch to the chest. He was sitting in his temporary apartment when his phone rang. It was Captain Bill Roberts, his commanding officer. Morrison, where the hell are you? Roberts said angrily. You were supposed to report back yesterday. We have a new mission that requires your skills. I need more time, sir, Jake replied. There's something I have to take care of here on Earth. What could be more important than defending humanity in space? Roberts asked. We're launching a deep space mission next week. Intelligence says the alien coalition is planning something big. We need every enhanced soldier we can get. Jake looked out his window toward the motel where Lisa was staying. It's personal, sir. I found someone from my past who needs help. There was silence on the phone for a moment. Then Roberts spoke again, his voice softer. Jake, I know coming back to Earth can be hard, but you can't save everyone. Your duty is to the mission, to all of humanity. One person isn't worth risking that. What if that one person represents what we're really fighting for? Jake asked. What do you mean? Jake took a deep breath. Sir, I've discovered that Lisa's condition was caused by the same experiments that enhanced me. She's one of the failed subjects that got left behind. If we abandon people like her, what are we really protecting out there among the stars? Roberts was quiet for a long moment. Morrison, you're talking about things above your security level. Those old experiments were necessary for human survival. Some sacrifices had to be made. Sacrifices? Jake's voice got louder. These were innocent people who never agreed to be test subjects. They were used and then thrown away when the experiments failed. How is that different from what the enemy aliens do to their prisoners? Watch your tone, soldier, Roberts warned. You're walking a dangerous line here. Maybe I need to walk that line, sir. Maybe someone needs to stand up for the people who can't stand up for themselves. Roberts sighed heavily. Jake, you're one of our best officers. Don't throw away your career over some misguided sense of guilt. Report back to base tomorrow or you'll be marked as AWOL. Jake hung up the phone without answering. He knew what he had to do, but it would cost him everything he had worked for. His military career, his status as a hero, his place among the enhanced soldiers who protected humanity. All of it would be gone. The next morning, Jake went to see Lisa at the motel. She was sitting by the window looking out at the street. She seemed a little better after a few nights of real sleep and hot meals, but he could still see the sickness in her eyes. How are you feeling? He asked, sitting down across from her. Better, thanks to you, she said with a weak smile. But I know this is just temporary. You have your own life to get back to. You can't keep taking care of a broken person like me. Lisa, I need to tell you something, Jake said. I know what caused your illness, and I know why the doctors couldn't help you. He explained everything he had learned about the secret experiments, the alien technology, and how her condition was connected to his own enhancements. Lisa listened in shock and growing anger. So while they were making super soldiers like you, they were also creating victims like me? She asked. How many others are there? According to the files, thousands, Jake said. Most of them are dead now. The few who are still alive are homeless in mental hospitals or in prison. The government and the companies involved covered it all up. Lisa stood up and walked to the window. All these years I thought I was just unlucky. I thought maybe I had done something wrong to deserve this, but it was done to me on purpose. There might be a way to help you, Jake said. I have access to advanced alien medical technology through my military connections. If I can get you into the right facility, they might be able to reverse what was done to you. But that would require you to use your position as a soldier, wouldn't it? Lisa asked, turning to look at him. Jake nodded. It would require more than that. I would have to go against direct orders. I would have to steal classified technology. I would have to give up my military career and probably go to prison. Lisa stared at him. Jake, you can't do that. You're a hero. You save people across the galaxy. You can't throw that away for me. I'm not throwing it away for you, Jake said, standing up and walking over to her. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Because if we don't take care of our own people, if we don't fight for justice at home, then what are we really fighting for out there? Lisa's eyes filled with tears. But they'll destroy you. They'll call you a traitor. Let them, Jake said firmly. I've spent 10 years fighting aliens who hurt innocent people. Now I find out that my own government has been doing the same thing. Maybe it's time someone fought back. Jake pulled out his phone and dialed his commanding officer's number. When, Roberts answered. Jake spoke clearly and calmly. Sir, this is Morrison. I'm officially resigning from the Terran Defense Fleet, effective immediately. Morrison, don't do anything stupid, Roberts said urgently. Think about what you're giving up. I have thought about it, sir, and I've realized that some things are more important than following orders. If humanity is going to be worthy of a place among the stars, we need to start by taking care of our own people. Jake hung up the phone and turned to Lisa. Now, let's go find you some real help. As they left the motel together, Jake knew that his old life was over. But for the first time in years, he felt like he was doing something that truly mattered. He was not just protecting humanity anymore. He was protecting what made humanity worth protecting in the first place. Jake knew he needed help to fight against Nexus Biotech. The company was too big and powerful for him to take on alone. He spent 2 days using his military contacts to find people who might help him. Most of his old friends in the military thought he had gone crazy. They would not listen to him when he talked about the experiments and the cover-up. But then he found Dr. Amy Rodriguez. She had worked for Nexus Biotech for 5 years before quitting suddenly 3 months ago. Jake tracked her down to a small apartment in San Diego, where she was living quietly and trying to stay hidden. When Jake knocked on her door, Amy looked terrified. She was a small woman with dark hair and tired eyes. She looked like she had not been sleeping well. "Who are you?" she asked through the door. "What do you want?" "My name is Jake Morrison. I used to be a soldier. I need to talk to you about Nexus Biotech and what they did to innocent people." Amy opened the door slowly, keeping the chain lock on. "How do I know you're not working for them? How do I know they didn't send you to find me?" Jake showed her his military identification and told her about Lisa. He explained how he had discovered the connection between the experiments and Lisa's illness. Amy listened carefully, studying his face to see if he was telling the truth. Finally, she let him inside. Her apartment was small and messy. There were papers and files scattered everywhere. Medical books were stacked on every surface. It looked like she had been researching something important. "I've been trying to find a way to help the victims," Amy said, pointing to the papers. "But I don't have access to the labs anymore. And I'm just one person. Nexus has hundreds of scientists and billions of dollars." "What exactly did you do at Nexus?" Jake asked. Amy sat down heavily in a chair. "I was part of the team that worked on human enhancement projects. At first I thought we were doing good work. We were trying to make people stronger and healthier. But then I started noticing things that didn't make sense." She picked up a thick file from her desk. There were subjects who got sick after the treatments. Really sick. But instead of trying to help them, the company just made them disappear. They would transfer them to other facilities or pay their families to stay quiet. Some of them just vanished completely. Jake felt his anger growing. "How many people are we talking about?" "Thousands," Amy said quietly. "Over 30 years, there have been at least 10,000 failed subjects. Most of them are dead now. The ones who are still alive are scattered across the country, living on the streets or in mental hospitals. The company made sure they would never be able to tell their stories." Jake thought about Lisa and how she had been living under a bridge. "What about the successful subjects, people like me?" Amy looked at him carefully. "You're one of the enhanced soldiers, aren't you? I can tell by the way you move and the color of your eyes. The military program was Nexus's biggest success. They created about 5,000 enhanced humans for the Space Forces. And for every success like me, how many people like Lisa suffered?" "About 10 to 1, Amy said. "For every enhanced soldier, there were 10 failed subjects who got sick or died." Jake stood up and started pacing around the small apartment. "We have to stop them. We have to expose what they've done and get help for the victims." Amy shook her head. "I tried that already. I went to the government, to the news media, to everyone I could think of. But Nexus has too much power. They have contracts with the military and connections with politicians. They made me look like a crazy person who was lying for attention." "What if we had proof?" Jake asked. "Real evidence that couldn't be ignored?" Amy's eyes lit up. "There is proof. I made copies of files before I quit, but they're locked in a safe deposit box that I can't access anymore. Nexus froze all my bank accounts and made sure I couldn't get to any of my old research." Jake smiled. "That's not a problem for someone with my skills. Where is this safe deposit box?" 2 hours later, Jake and Amy were standing in front of First National Bank in downtown Los Angeles. Jake had used his enhanced strength to break into the bank's security system and disable the alarms. His military training had taught him how to get into places that were supposed to be impossible to enter. The safe deposit box was full of files, computer disks, and photographs. Amy grabbed everything and stuffed it into a large bag. As they left the bank, she was practically shaking with excitement. "This is everything," she said. "Medical records, financial documents, emails between company executives, everything that proves what Nexus has been doing to people." They went back to Amy's apartment and spread the files out on her kitchen table. Jake looked through page after page of evidence. There were medical records showing how subjects got sick after the treatments. There were emails from company executives talking about covering up the failures. There were financial records showing payments to families to keep them quiet. But the most shocking thing Jake found was a list of names. Thousands of names of people who had been used as test subjects without their knowledge. Lisa's name was on the list, along with the date she had been given the experimental treatments. They did this to her when she was in college, Jake said, pointing to Lisa's file. She was a student volunteer for what she thought was a routine medical study. They told her she was helping to test new vitamins. Amy nodded sadly. That's how they got most of their subjects. They would recruit college students, homeless people, or patients in hospitals. They would tell them they were participating in harmless studies, but they were actually being given experimental alien technology. Jake found another file that made his blood boil. It was a report from Marcus Webb, the CEO of Nexus Biotech. In the report, Webb called the failed subjects acceptable losses and said they were necessary sacrifices for the greater good of humanity. "This man needs to pay for what he's done," Jake said. Amy looked scared. "Jake, Webb is one of the most powerful people in the world. He has connections with alien governments and human military leaders. He's not someone you can just walk up to and arrest." "Maybe not," Jake said. "But I know people who can help us get to him. And I know ways to make sure this information gets to the right people, even if Nexus tries to stop us." Jake picked up his phone and called someone from his old military unit. It was Tony Martinez, another enhanced soldier who had always been loyal to Jake. "Tony, I need a favor," Jake said when his friend answered. "I need you to help me expose some very bad people who have been hurting innocent civilians." "What kind of help?" Tony asked. "The kind that might get us both in trouble with our superiors. But it's the right thing to do." There was a long pause. Then Tony spoke. "Where and when do you need me?" Jake smiled. Maybe he was not as alone in this fight as he had thought. With Amy's evidence and help from soldiers like Tony, they might actually be able to take down Nexus Biotech and get justice for Lisa and all the other victims. "We're going to need a plan," Jake said to Amy. "Webb and his people won't go down without a fight, but they've been hurting innocent people for too long. It's time someone stood up to them." Amy looked at him with hope in her eyes for the first time since he had met her. "What do you want to do?" Jake looked at all the evidence spread across the table. "We're going to make sure the whole world knows what Nexus Biotech has been doing, and then we're going to make sure they can never hurt anyone again." Jake spent a week planning his attack on Nexus Biotech headquarters. The building was a massive glass tower in downtown Chicago, protected by the best security money could buy. But Jake had advantages that normal people did not have. His enhanced body could move faster than security cameras could track, and his military training had taught him how to get past any defense system. Tony Martinez arrived from his space station assignment to help with the mission. He brought 2 other enhanced soldiers with him, Carlos Lopez and Danny Kim. All 3 men trusted Jake completely and were willing to risk their careers to help him. "Are you sure about this?" Tony asked as they studied the building plans. "Once we go in there, there's no going back. They'll court-martial all of us." Jake looked at his friends. "I've already resigned from the military. You guys can still walk away if you want. I won't think less of you." Carlos shook his head. "We've been brothers in combat for 10 years. If you say this is important, then it's important. Besides, I never liked the idea of experimenting on innocent people." Danny nodded in agreement. "My sister was sick a few years ago with symptoms that sound like what you described. The doctors never could figure out what was wrong with her. She died alone in a hospital room. If there's a chance this company was responsible, then I want to make them pay." Amy Rodriguez had been working around the clock to prepare evidence packages for news organizations and government officials. She had created dozens of copies of all the files, stored on computer drives that would be impossible to destroy or cover up. "I've sent copies to reporters in 12 different countries," she told Jake. "I've also sent them to politicians, medical organizations, and human rights groups. Even if Nexus tries to stop us, the truth will get out." The plan was simple, but dangerous. Jake and his team would break into the Nexus building during a board meeting, where CEO Marcus Webb would be presenting to important investors and alien representatives. Jake would confront Webb directly while the meeting was being recorded by security cameras. At the same time, Amy would release the evidence to the public. On Thursday morning, Jake put on his old military uniform and walked into the Nexus building lobby. He looked like an official military inspector making a routine visit. The security guards did not suspect anything when he showed them fake identification that Tony had created. Jake took the elevator to the top floor where the executive offices were located. His enhanced hearing could pick up voices coming from the large conference room at the end of the hall. The board meeting had already started. He walked down the hallway, easily avoiding the security cameras with his enhanced speed. When he reached the conference room, he could hear Marcus Webb speaking inside. "Gentlemen, ladies, and honored alien representatives," Webb was saying. "I'm pleased to report that our human enhancement program has exceeded all expectations. We have successfully created 5,000 enhanced soldiers who are now serving humanity's interests across the galaxy." Jake opened the door and walked into the room. There were about 20 people sitting around a large table. Half of them were humans in expensive suits. The other half were aliens from different species. Some tall and thin, others short and covered in fur. They all looked up in surprise when Jake entered. Marcus Webb was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people made in a year. When he saw Jake, his face showed a mixture of anger and fear. "Security," Webb shouted. "Get this man out of here immediately." "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Jake said calmly. "You see, I'm one of your success stories, Mr. Webb. One of the enhanced soldiers you're so proud of. But I'm here to talk about the ones you don't mention in your presentations." 2 security guards rushed into the room, but Jake moved faster than they could see. He disabled both of them without seriously hurting them, then stood in front of the conference table where everyone could see him clearly. "My name is Jake Morrison, and I used to serve in the Terran Defense Fleet," he announced to the room. "I'm here to tell you the truth about what this company has been doing to innocent people for 30 years. Webb's face turned red with anger. "You have no right to be here. This is a private meeting. Whatever lies you think you know, no one will believe you." Jake smiled. "I'm not the only one who knows the truth, Mr. Webb. In fact, while we're talking, evidence of your crimes is being released to news organizations around the world." One of the alien representatives, a tall creature with purple skin, spoke up. "What crimes is this human talking about? We were told that all enhancement subjects volunteered willingly." "That's a lie," Jake said, looking directly at the alien. "For every successful soldier like me, 10 innocent people were used as test subjects without their consent. They were told they were participating in harmless medical studies, but they were actually being injected with experimental alien technology." Webb stood up from his chair. "This man is mentally unstable. He's been dishonorably discharged from the military for psychological problems. Don't listen to his fantasies." "Is that so?" Jake asked. He pulled out a thick folder full of documents. "Then how do you explain these medical records? These financial documents showing payments to keep families quiet? These emails where you and your executives talk about covering up the failed experiments?" He threw the papers across the table so everyone could see them. The alien representatives picked up some of the documents and began reading them with shocked expressions. "These records show thousands of people who got sick and died after your experiments," Jake continued. "People like Lisa Carter, who is now living on the streets because your company destroyed her life and then abandoned her." Webb's face went pale. "How did you get those files? Those are classified company documents." "It doesn't matter how I got them," Jake said. "What matters is that they prove you've been lying to everyone. You've been telling people that human enhancement is safe and ethical, but you've been covering up the victims." One of the alien representatives stood up. He was from a species that looked like tall, thin humans with silver skin. "If what this soldier says is true, then we have been deceived. My government was told that all human subjects volunteered and gave informed consent." Webb tried to regain control of the situation. "Don't listen to him. These documents could be fake. This man is a terrorist who broke into our building illegally." "The documents are real," came a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Amy Rodriguez walking into the room, followed by Tony, Carlos, and Danny. I should know because I created most of them when I worked for this company. Amy walked over to the conference table and looked directly at Webb. I was part of your research team for 5 years. I saw what you did to innocent people. I saw how you covered up the failures and abandoned the victims. That's why I quit. And that's why I've been working to expose you. Webb looked around the room desperately. Many of the human investors were looking uncomfortable, and the alien representatives seemed angry and confused. Even if some mistakes were made in the past, Webb said, we were working for the greater good of humanity. We created the enhanced soldiers that protect human colonies across the galaxy. Some sacrifices had to be made. Jake stepped closer to forced sacrifices. These were innocent people who never agreed to be sacrificed. They were students, patients, homeless people who trusted you to help them, not destroy their lives. The silver-skinned alien representative spoke again. My government will need to review these allegations carefully. If humans have been harmed, without consent, this violates the ethical standards we require from our partners. Webb realized he was losing control of the situation. You can't prove any of this will hold up in court. I have the best lawyers money can buy. Jake smiled grimly. You're right that this might not hold up in human courts, but you've been doing business with alien governments too, and some of them take a very dim view of species that experiment on their own people without consent. As if to prove his point, several alien representatives stood up and began walking toward the door. They looked disgusted and angry. This meeting is over, said the purple-skinned alien. My species will be conducting our own investigation into these allegations. If they prove true, Nexus Biotech will lose all contracts with our government. As the aliens left the room, Webb turned to Jake with hatred in his eyes. You have no idea what you've done. You've destroyed humanity's partnership with some of our most important allies. No, Jake said firmly. You did that when you decided to torture innocent people in the name of progress. I'm just making sure everyone knows the truth. Within hours of Jake's confrontation with Marcus Webb, the story was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. Amy Rodriguez had done her job perfectly. News organizations on dozens of planets were broadcasting the evidence of Nexus Biotech's crimes. The videos of Jake confronting Webb in the boardroom were being shown on every news channel. Jake and his team had to move quickly. They knew that Nexus would try to destroy evidence and silence witnesses before the authorities could act. Webb had connections with powerful people who might try to cover up the scandal to protect themselves. Back on Earth, Jake went to see Lisa at the motel where she was staying. She was watching the news coverage on an old television when he arrived. Her face was pale, but her eyes were bright with something Jake had not seen in years. Hope. Is it really happening? She asked. Are they really going to be stopped? It's just the beginning, Jake told her. But yes, it's happening. The whole galaxy knows the truth now. On the television, a news reporter was interviewing families of victims who had been hiding for years. Parents whose children had died after mysterious medical treatments were finally speaking out. Homeless people who had been living on the streets because of unexplained illnesses were telling their stories. Jake's phone rang. It was Captain Roberts, his former commanding officer. Morrison, what the hell have you done? Roberts shouted. The entire command structure is in chaos. Half our alien allies are threatening to cut off relations with humanity. Good, Jake replied calmly. Maybe they should cut off relations until we clean up our act. You don't understand the bigger picture, Roberts said. Yes, maybe some mistakes were made with the enhancement program. But without enhanced soldiers like you, humanity would have been destroyed by hostile alien species years ago. The enhanced soldiers can still exist, Jake said, but they need to be created ethically with volunteers who understand the risks, not by torturing innocent people. Roberts was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke again, his voice softer. Jake, some of the other enhanced soldiers are talking about joining you. If this keeps up, we could lose half our space fleet. Jake was surprised. What do you mean? I mean, soldiers like Tony Martinez aren't the only ones who think you're right. When the enhanced soldiers found out how they were created, a lot of them got angry. Really angry. Some of them are refusing to follow orders until the victims get help. This was better news than Jake had hoped for. If the enhanced soldiers were supporting him, it would be much harder for the government and military to cover up the scandal. Over the next few days, the revolution grew larger. Enhanced soldiers across the galaxy began demanding justice for the victims of the experiments. Some of them resigned from the military like Jake had done. Others stayed in service but refused to participate in missions until reforms were made. The alien governments were also taking action. The purple-skinned aliens that Jake had met in Webb's boardroom announced that they were cutting off all trade with companies involved in unethical human experimentation. Other alien species followed their lead, but Nexus Biotech was not giving up without a fight. Webb hired private military contractors to protect his facilities. He also started spreading lies about Jake and Amy, claiming they were terrorists who wanted to destroy humanity's defenses against alien threats. Jake knew they had to act fast before Webb could destroy more evidence or hurt more people. He contacted enhanced soldiers throughout the galaxy and asked them to help with coordinated strikes against Nexus facilities. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of enhanced soldiers volunteered to help. They were angry that their abilities had been built on the suffering of innocent people like Lisa. They wanted to make things right. The strikes began on a Tuesday morning. Enhanced soldiers hit Nexus facilities on 12 different planets at exactly the same time. Their enhanced abilities made them nearly impossible to stop. They moved through the facilities like ghosts, collecting evidence and freeing any remaining test subjects they found. On Earth, Jake led the strike on the main Nexus headquarters. Tony, Carlos, and Danny were with him, along with 6 other enhanced soldiers who had joined their cause. They easily overpowered Webb's private security forces without seriously injuring anyone. Jake found Webb in his office, frantically trying to delete computer files that contained evidence of the experiments. When Webb saw Jake, he stopped what he was doing and glared at him with pure hatred. "You've destroyed everything," Webb said. "Humanity will be defenseless against alien threats because of what you've done." "Humanity will be stronger because we're doing the right thing," Jake replied. "We don't need to build our strength on the suffering of innocent people." "You're naive," Webb sneered. "The galaxy is a dangerous place. Sometimes good people have to do bad things to protect their species." Jake shook his head. "No, they don't. There are always other choices. You chose to hurt innocent people because it was easier and more profitable than finding ethical solutions." The police arrived to arrest Webb and his executive team. As Webb was being led away in handcuffs, he shouted at Jake one last time, "This isn't over. I have friends in high places who will make sure you pay for this." But Webb's threats rang hollow. Too many people knew the truth now. The evidence was too widespread to cover up or destroy. Amy Rodriguez was working with medical teams across the galaxy to develop treatments for the victims of the experiments. The alien species that had been deceived by Nexus were sharing their advanced medical technology to help heal the people who had been hurt. For the first time in weeks, Jake allowed himself to feel hopeful. But he knew the real work was just beginning. There were thousands of victims who needed help, and it would take years to undo all the damage that had been done. His phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Chen, one of the alien medical specialists, who was working with Amy. "We've made a breakthrough," Dr. Chen said excitedly. "We think we can reverse the neural degradation that affects victims like your friend Lisa. The treatment will be experimental, but we believe it has a very good chance of success." Jake felt his heart leap with joy. "When can we start?" "Bring her to the medical facility tomorrow morning. We'll begin the treatment immediately." Jake hung up the phone and ran to find Lisa. She was in Amy's apartment helping to organize files of other victims who needed help. When Jake told her about the possible treatment, she started crying. "Are you sure it will work?" she asked. "Nothing is certain," Jake said honestly. "But it's the best chance we've had. And even if it doesn't work perfectly, you won't be facing this alone anymore. There are thousands of people who understand what you've been through, and we're all going to help each other." Lisa hugged him tightly. "Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for choosing to help instead of walking away." Jake held her close. "Some choices are easy to make when you know what's right." Outside, the sun was setting over a world that was beginning to change. The revolution had succeeded, but the real work of healing and justice was just beginning. Jake knew it would be a long road, but for the first time in years he believed that humanity was heading in the right direction. 6 months after the fall of Nexus Biotech, Jake stood in the main treatment center of the Carter Foundation Medical Facility. The building was located on a peaceful planet called New Haven, far from Earth, but easily accessible to people from across the galaxy. The foundation had been named after Lisa, and it was dedicated to helping all the victims of illegal medical experiments. Lisa walked up beside him, looking healthier than she had in years. The alien medical treatment had worked better than anyone had hoped. Her hands no longer shook. Her mind was clear and sharp again, and the terrible sickness that had controlled her life was finally gone. She was wearing clean clothes and had gained back the weight she had lost during her years on the streets. "How many new patients are we expecting this week?" she asked, looking at the schedule on her tablet. 43, Jake replied. 28 humans and 15 aliens from different species. It turns out that Nexus wasn't the only company doing illegal experiments. We're finding victims all across the galaxy. Lisa nodded sadly. At least now they have somewhere to go for help. The Carter Foundation had grown rapidly. What had started as Jake's personal mission to help Lisa had become a galaxy-wide movement. Hundreds of enhanced soldiers had quit the military to work for the Foundation. Alien governments were contributing money and medical technology. Even some of the companies that had worked with Nexus were now funding treatment programs to make up for their past mistakes. Amy Rodriguez walked into the room carrying a stack of medical files. She was now the Foundation's chief medical officer, working with alien doctors to develop new treatments for experiment victims. Her face looked tired, but happy. "We just got the results from the latest treatment trials," she announced. "The success rate is now up to 85%. We can help almost all of the victims recover completely." Jake smiled. "That's incredible news. What about the ones we can't help completely?" "Even the patients who don't recover fully are living much better lives," Amy said. "They have homes, medical care, and people who understand what they've been through. No one has to suffer alone anymore." Tony Martinez came through the door, still wearing his space pilot uniform. He had not quit the military like Jake, but he was spending his leave time helping the Foundation. Behind him were Carlos Lopez and Danny Kim, also still in service but volunteering their time. "Jake, you need to see this," Tony said, holding up a news tablet. The Galactic Council just announced their decision about enhanced soldier programs. Jake took the tablet and read the headline. "New laws require consent and safety for all human enhancement programs." The article explained that alien governments had worked together to create strict rules about human experiments. All future enhancement programs would have to use volunteers who fully understood the risks. Companies would have to prove their treatments were safe before testing them on people, and any company that hurt people through illegal experiments would be banned from doing business with alien governments. "This is exactly what we hoped for," Lisa said, reading over Jake's shoulder. "No one else will have to go through what I went through." Danny looked excited. "There's more good news. The military is starting a new enhanced soldier program that follows all the new rules. They want volunteers who know exactly what they're signing up for, and they're offering to help any current soldiers who want to reverse their enhancements." Jake was surprised. "Really? Some soldiers want to go back to being normal humans?" Carlos nodded. Not everyone was happy about being changed without fully understanding what it meant. Some guys want to go back to their families and live normal lives. The new program gives them that choice. Jake thought about his own enhancements. He had never regretted becoming stronger and faster, but he understood why some soldiers might want to change back. The important thing was that now they had a choice. A young woman walked into the room. She was one of the Foundation's newest patients, a college student named Rachel, who had been used in experiments by a different company. Her treatment had been successful, and now she was working as a volunteer to help other victims. "Excuse me, Mr. Morrison," she said politely. "There's someone here to see you. He says he's from the Terran Defense Fleet." Jake wondered who it could be. He walked to the main reception area and found Captain Roberts waiting for him. His former commanding officer looked older and more tired than Jake remembered. "Hello, Jake," Roberts said. "I hope you don't mind me visiting." "Of course not, sir. What brings you all the way out here?" Roberts looked around at the busy medical facility. Patients and doctors from dozens of different species were working together, helping people heal from terrible experiences. "I came to apologize," Roberts said quietly, "and to offer you your commission back." Jake was shocked. "Sir, I was wrong about what you did," Roberts continued. "I thought you were being foolish throwing away your career for one person. But you weren't just helping one person. You were standing up for what's right, and because of that, thousands of people are getting help they never would have received." Roberts pulled an official document from his briefcase. "The military wants you back, Jake. They're offering you a promotion to colonel and command of the new Ethical Enhancement Program. You'd be in charge of making sure nothing like the Nexus experiments ever happens again." Jake looked at the document, then at Lisa, who was watching from across the room. She nodded at him encouragingly, telling him without words that she would support whatever decision he made. "I'm honored by the offer, sir," Jake said finally. "But I think I can do more good here. The Foundation is just getting started. There are still thousands of victims who need help, and we're learning new ways to heal them every day." Robert smiled. "I thought you might say that. The military also authorized me to offer the Foundation a permanent partnership. We'll provide funding, security, and transportation for your work. In exchange, you help us make sure all future enhancement programs are ethical and safe." Jake extended his hand to his former commanding officer. "That sounds like a deal we can work with." As Roberts left, Jake walked back to where Lisa was working. She was reviewing files of new patients who would be arriving next week. Her face was focused and determined, the same expression she had worn when she was studying to be a teacher years ago. "Any regrets?" she asked without looking up from her work. Jake sat down beside her. "About what?" "About giving up your military career, your status as a hero, your place among the enhanced soldiers. All of it." Jake thought for a moment. "I didn't give up being a hero, Lisa. I just found a different way to be one. Out there in space, I was protecting humanity by fighting alien enemies. Here, I'm protecting humanity by making sure we treat each other with dignity and respect." Lisa looked up at him and smiled. "And which one feels more important to you?" Jake looked around the medical facility at all the people who were healing, learning, and helping each other. Humans and aliens working together, former enemies becoming friends, victims becoming helpers. "This one," he said without hesitation. "Definitely this one." Outside the window, ships from across the galaxy were landing at the Foundation's spaceport. They carried more patients who needed help, more volunteers who wanted to contribute, and more supplies donated by governments and organizations that supported their work. Jake and Lisa had found each other again after years of separation and suffering. But more than that, they had found a purpose that was bigger than both of them. They were part of something that was making the galaxy a better, more compassionate place. As the sun set over New Haven, Jake realized that sometimes the best way to protect humanity wasn't with weapons or enhanced abilities. Sometimes it was simply by refusing to abandon the people who needed help the most. And that was a lesson that the entire galaxy was learning, one patient at a time.